Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the award winning recovery podcast, Get in the Herd, brought to you by the McShin Foundation. Today is January 11th, is that correct? I forget. You know
It
what?
is.
Man,
It
I,
is
I,
the 11th.
I should have checked that before we got on the show, but the reason I'm asking that is because right over here to my left, I got one of my other favorite Justins in the world. I've got Justin Ray, and I asked Justin to come on the show. I saw him last week and they came and popped up here. Stuff was going on. Justin's alumni of the McShin Foundation, and came and sat in my office. We talked for a little bit, and I've always enjoyed my conversations with Justin. And so, I kind of said, why don't you come up and join the show and talk about recovery, talk about where you are, what got you into McShin Foundation, into recovery, and all
And
that
you
good stuff.
you remember what my immediate response was?
I don't know.
No.
Yeah, no,
You
well,
didn't even finish asking, and I was like, no. But yeah, I'm
but
not
I
doing
see what
anything
you're
today.
doing right now.
I'm sitting here, right?
Well, so speaking of not taking no for an answer, how are you doing?
I'm doing great actually. I'm in the middle of a job search, so that's a little bit stressful, but the amount of stress that it's taken off in my personal relationship at home with my daughter's mother, my partner, um, it's kind of tipped the balance. So I'm not completely stressed out dealing with, financial arguments between her and I, but I'm kind of stressed out because I don't have a job right now. So,
And you
but
have
other than that, recovery's going good. I practice my program on a daily basis,
mm,
so that's the most important thing, obviously.
I love seeing you on Facebook because I see you post not the daily reflection, the just for today, every day. And while you were in my office, just before the show, you remembered that you
I hadn't read it yet.
hadn't read it, hadn't posted it, and so we brought it out. And I wondered, do you want to bring it up and maybe we can go from there, talk
Sure, I'll
about
read
that?
it. Yeah,
Yeah. Today is January 11th, what, 2022? Holy
correct.
cow.
22.
And still we get younger.
Little fun factoid. This year on February the 22nd will be 2/22/22.
Whoa.
It's on a Tuesday.
Is it?
So it's gonna be Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Interesting.
We wear our blue shirt on Tuesday because it's Blues Day. I'm not
Oh,
kidding.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah, see?
All right, so January 11th, faith. I'm gonna turn it this way. As we develop faith in our daily lives, we find that our higher power supplies us with the strength and guidance that we need. Basic text, page 94. Some of us come into recovery very frightened and insecure. We feel weak and alone. We are certain of our direction. We are uncertain of our direction and don't know where to go for answers. We are told that if we find some faith in a power greater than ourselves, we will find security and guidance. We want that feeling of safety and strength, but faith doesn't come overnight. It takes time and effort to grow. The seed is planted when we ask our higher power for help and then acknowledge the source of our help when it comes. We nurture the tiny seed of faith with the sunlight of our prayers each day. Our faith grows, a reward for living life on its own terms. One day we realize our faith has become like a huge spreading tree. It doesn't stop the storms of life, but we know that we are safe in its shelter. Just for today, I know that faith in my higher power will not calm the storms of life, but it will calm my heart. I will let my faith shelter me in times of trouble. Thanks for letting me read.
Thanks. Thank you for reading. Now, of course, at McShin Foundation, we aren't at the McShin Foundation. We aren't a 12-step fellowship. We are not a pathway of recovery. We are an introduction to multiple pathways of recovery.
Correct.
Many people here, go into one 12-step or another 12-step fellowship. And so this is part of the Narcotics Anonymous fellowship, right?
Correct.
What brought you to the McShin Foundation? What brought you to recovery?
So, I originally moved to Virginia to get away from. I grew up in Maryland,
Okay.
and
Where in Maryland?
so I lived in Pasadena, Maryland, for about 14, 15 years of my life, and then as a teenager, moved to Baltimore, and
Ah,
pretty rough part also. And I was starting to experiment more and more with drugs and alcohol. And turns out that there was a guy that lived right across the street that sold heroin. So my addiction took off, and I stole everything from my grandmother that wasn't bolted down. And if it was bolted down, I was going and getting tools and unbolting it and stealing that as well. Um, And so she finally had enough, and she said, "Look, you need to go to rehab or you need to go to detox or something." And so up there in Baltimore, they have a hospital called Mercy Hospital, and they do a 3-day medical assisted detox that's completely free. You don't need to have insurance or anything like that. And so I went to this detox, and while I'm in there, a friend of mine who, my childhood best friend growing up, we lived right down the street from each other. He reaches out to me and he says, "Hey man, I see you're trying to get your life together. You went to detox and everything. That's good. I'm proud of you. My family just bought 22 acres in Spotsylvania, Virginia, and they said that you could move in down here to get away from, everything up there." And so I was like, okay. So that's how I ended up in Virginia. Got out of the detox. I stayed clean for probably 6 months.
How old were you at this point?
20, let's see, this was 2013. I was like 22.
Okay, and you're 30 now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so came to Virginia, stayed clean for probably about 6 months, and then started drinking again. And found out that the guy that lived down, and this is way out in the middle of nowhere, Spotsylvania, Virginia. Um, about a mile down the road that my buddy's family lived on, at the very first house on the end of the street, uh, was a guy that sold pills and heroin. And so within 6 months of moving down here, I was using again. And I'm sure you're aware, but it's said that the disease progresses even during periods of abstinence. So when I picked up, it was worse than when I left off. Um, Ended up meeting some people, got introduced to methamphetamines, and I got arrested for manufacturing methamphetamines in Caroline County. And when that happened, anyone that gets arrested in Caroline County goes to Pamunkey Regional Jail. And as you're aware, McShin Foundation had a program in that jail.
Actually, we do again.
Still have
Yeah.
the program.
But,
Okay.
yeah, we've reopened it.
Okay. So yeah, I entered the recovery program that McShin facilitated in the jail, and I did 10 months of my sentence in that program. So
Oh,
I
wow.
had a huge introduction to the program of Narcotics Anonymous, and different pathways to recovery. There was a facilitator that came in and did kind of like faith-based
Mhm.
stuff like that. And I was homeless when I got arrested. And so my release date is coming up, and I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to go. And so the intake coordinator here at McShin at one point would come in 1 day a week, and I let him know. I said, "Hey man, my release date's getting ready to come up. Like, I don't have any family in the area. I was homeless when I got arrested. I don't have any resources." He's like, "Don't worry. We'll get you into a house. We'll get you, try and get you a scholarship, whatever needs to be done." And on my release date, um, my mother came down from Maryland. She was supposed to pick me up, but unfortunately, she was a little bit late. But luckily for me, one of the facilitators from, a staff member at the McShin Foundation was also there, because she wanted to meet me at the same time to make sure that, plans didn't change. And, I
Yeah.
ended up going elsewhere, because you know how we do as addicts sometimes. And so she was like, "Call your mom, let her know I've got you, and she can just meet us at the church." And so I'm like, "All right, cool." We ended up actually going to Cracker Barrel for breakfast, which was nice. Because I had just done 18 months without any kind of like real food,
Yeah.
so that was a huge treat. But
What
yeah,
what what did you eat? I want
man,
details.
I believe it was like the Country Boy breakfast. So
Okay.
it's like a 10-ounce sirloin steak,
Holy
eggs,
cow.
hash brown casserole, fried apples, grits, sausage gravy, and biscuits.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Ooh. All right, all right.
It didn't stay in my stomach very long.
No?
No, no. I mean, because I just had 18 months of jail food, and then you put like real food with real
Yeah.
grease on,
Ooh, not good.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Sorry to bring up a bad memory.
no, it's okay. It was a great memory. I was happy to have that BM. Sorry.
Oh, it
if
was
that's
it
too
was
much.
that way, not
Yeah,
the
yeah,
other.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
I was
yeah.
thinking this way.
No, no.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yeah. By
Anyway.
the time I got here to the church, I was like, "Where's the bathroom?" But so yeah, I came here to the church, did all the intake paperwork, and ended up going to. I was told on my paperwork that I filled out for Department of Corrections, like my release plan, that I was going to be going to the Smith House, and
Mm.
then I get here and they're like, "Well, you're going to Chamberlain," and I was like, "I've heard like." Isn't Chamberlain like a bad part of Richmond? Like, I've never been to
Yeah.
Richmond before this day. Like, when I come here, I get out of jail and I'm coming to McShin. I've never been to Richmond before. I've just heard stories while I was in the jail about like, oh yeah, Chamberlain Avenue, and I'm like, wait, you're like sending me the hood? Eh, The house isn't in the hood. It's in, decent end of Chamberlain. But yeah, I was there for 74 days, I believe. And
Mm.
then they offered me the opportunity to go to Eco Flats, which at the time was
Yeah.
managed by McShin Foundation. I believe now it's managed by another recovery organization in the Richmond area.
You can mention them.
Yeah, True Recovery, and I have some experience with that foundation as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I stayed at Eco Flats for a few months, and then met a girl, as we do. She was in recovery as well, and yeah,
Ooh.
she was actually the outreach worker for another recovery organization in the area, one of the oldest standing recovery organizations in the United States.
Really?
Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
I,
I
I,
don't know if I can name drop. I don't know what their
well,
policies
I'm not
are.
really sure. Yeah.
It was Oxford House.
Ah.
And so she was in charge of like 27 houses in Central Virginia. And that job was like herding cats.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw
Well,
all the stress that it caused her. And so,
and
um,
you said I can relieve that stress for you.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It was funny. At one
With
point,
all that, with that, top third testosterone
yeah,
level.
yeah, we'll get into that later. But yeah, there was a house that was run by, um, it's actually run by True Recovery now, but she was living in this house and she was like the outreach worker, so she had a private bedroom and it was in the basement of the house and there was like a separate entrance and
Ah.
everything. And so I would take my overnights from Eco Flats and she would sneak me into her Oxford house and I would spend the night there and then she would have to like sneak me back out in the morning. Um
So that old behavior,
yeah, and then
very familiar old behavior.
right, and then so at some point, it's known now that she's sneaking me into the Oxford house.
Yeah.
All the girls in the house are like, "Well, she's our outreach worker. What are we gonna say?" And so they didn't care.
Yeah.
It got to the point where I was able to just walk in the front door and, "Hey, how y'all doing?" And so, but they moved her around a few times, and she got tired of it.
Yeah.
And so we were like, "Screw it, let's get a place together." And we did, and it worked out for probably 2 weeks before I was drinking again. And didn't take long after I started drinking to start using other substances. So the program that I follow, you've mentioned 12-step fellowships, is Narcotics Anonymous.
Hmm.
And in our literature, it says that alcohol is a drug.
Period.
Yeah, period. And for me, anytime I think it's okay to start drinking, even though it's a legal substance, you can go anywhere and buy it. It always leads me down a very bad path.
Hmm.
And we'll get into more of that later because that's what, this most recent relapse was for me.
Well, I want to continue from there in a minute, but I do want to circle back to something you said about Chamberlain Avenue.
Hmm.
And I know that wherever I go,
Oh,
there I am.
take you with you
I'm
everywhere
taking
you go.
myself, right?
That's why the
Yeah.
geographic change from moving from Baltimore down to Spotsylvania, Virginia didn't work for me
Yeah.
because I hadn't done any work inside that, I packed Addict Justin up in the suitcase and all right, we're just going to go find new people to use and manipulate. And
What is it that you always say? I've heard you say before. I don't know if you still say it. I'm an addict with a problem named Justin.
yeah, that's,
Is that,
I
do you
used
still
to,
use that?
no,
Why have you changed that?
it just got annoying because people would walk up to me after meetings and they'd say, "Hey, addict with a problem named Justin," and I'm like, "All right, that's enough." Like I always make sure that when I introduce myself now, I say I'm an addict and I say my name because if I forget that I'm an addict first and foremost,
Hmm.
then that's when I start thinking that I can kind of take my will back and control my life again. Whereas if I keep it first thing I introduce myself as is I'm an addict and then give you my name, it reminds me I'm always going to be an addict. Today I'm an addict in recovery.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm always going to be an addict because you know you've heard it many times. The drug use and the alcohol use is just a symptom. Like we have a mental illness, a disease, and for me, my disease tells me that it's okay to destroy my physical, mental, and emotional health with drugs and alcohol because I suffer from many different problems: depression, anxiety, fear, insecurity, low self-esteem. And so, I need to remember that I've got to work this program daily because there's no magic pill for me to take and I'm not an addict anymore.
No, if there were a magic pill, I'd probably try to take 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mean I could be a super normal person? Give me 7 of them. Yeah, that's how it goes for me.
I appreciate that frankness, and I do appreciate that what you say and the shift there. When I first got here, I used to say, maybe you remember this, I don't know, I forget about this. I used to say, I'm Nathan and I'm all of the above, And
Okay.
yeah, it was corny at the time. There was a guy in jail who used to say that, and I thought it was funny, and whatever. I adopted it as my thing. And for me, I recognized fairly early on. I'm like, yeah, I'm not identifying into the group. I'm still identifying out.
Yeah.
I did that. I did that for a long time with that one particular 12-step fellowship, and I migrated towards Alcoholics Anonymous. For me, um, for many reasons that are completely inconsequential now.
Yeah.
At the time they seemed important, and now it's like, I go, I've got my people in both groups, both fellowships, and my people in recovery dharma, which I absolutely love, and get to meditate and get all kumbaya and stuff. That's
I've
that's
seen
good.
so many different pathways to recovery now. Like you mentioned, the recovery dharma,
Yeah.
there's smart recovery, celebrate recovery,
Yeah.
which I believe is a faith-based one. Of course, you have Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, um, whole slew of anonymous programs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably almost 100 of them from what I've heard,
Yeah. Yeah,
to deal with
probably.
all kinds of issues that you may have. And then like I've noticed now, the McShin Foundation has partnered with somebody that offers something called like breath work.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so
Mondays at 9:30. Frank comes and does that.
right.
Wow, that's cool.
I've seen it shared on Facebook, and I'm
Yeah,
like, there's so many different ways to recover now. Like
yeah.
we're blessed as time continues to go on. Like back in the 30s, 40s,
Oh
when
yeah.
AA started,
Well,
that
what
was the only thing. It
and
was either
alcohol wasn't legal up until what? Until what? 90 in 35 when prohibition ended or something like
I
that?
don't know the
38.
exact date, but
Yeah.
still. And so, it was either lock these people up in a sanitarium because obviously they're insane. They're
Yeah.
crazy. There's no helping them.
Yeah.
They got wet brain because they've been drinking all their life. And so just the progression of all the recovery resources that we have now is
Yeah.
phenomenal. 90 years? We're almost 90 years from when AA was started to
Yeah.
now we have so many different pathways.
Yeah.
And for me, like you mentioned identifying out,
Yeah.
that was my experience with the program of AA
Uh-huh.
because both of my parents were sober as I was growing up. And I believe a lot of the taboo behind drugs and alcohol is what pushed me further into like rebellion as
Yeah.
a child. Because they were both like super like, don't ever think about doing this and this is what it did to my life. And I would go with my dad to meetings all the time and hear him share and other people in the meetings share.
Oh, so they were sober and
They were sober when
in AA.
yeah, my
Ah.
dad would go to AA. I mean, he had 22 years sober when he passed away.
Oh wow.
And he was one of those people that as his life went on and he maintained his sobriety, he only went to one meeting a week, which was his home group. But I would go with him every week because that was kind of like bonding time. We would go and he'd stop and we'd stop at the convenience store and I'd get some candy and some sodas and go and like hang out at the meeting while he's, doing his thing. And but then when I was 13 years old, I got caught in freshman year of high school with marijuana. Actually caught smoking marijuana in the
Oh.
bathroom of high school.
Ooh.
And so I was sent to alternative school. Um, and I think it was court ordered to go to meetings at 13 years old. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, I've been going to these things for like 3 years. Like, I know what the deal is. And I went to an AA meeting, my dad's home group. Um,
Now, back for 1 second though. But you were just caught smoking in school.
yeah,
Were you distributing? Were you selling? Were
no,
you?
just a small personal amount.
And the
And
response was a criminal response. You had a criminal.
yeah, I wasn't charged, but it was kind of like the school and counselors and everything were like, okay, we're not going to charge you with this, but these are some things you need to do to make sure that doesn't happen.
Did you have court involvement?
Yeah.
So you had criminal justice involvement at 13.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I was, you know, had to do meetings. I had to go see a counselor
Yeah.
weekly, and I was sent to alternative school. I was expelled from the high school that I was going to, and I had to go to an alternative school with other children who have been expelled. Um, so yeah, I'm at a meeting one night to get back to where I was in
Yeah.
the story. I'm at a meeting one night, and I start sharing, what's going on. And they call them old timers in AA. This old timer speaks up and says to me, "Well, I've spilled more beer on my tie than you could have ever drank."
Yeah.
And that's where the identifying out
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
I said, "Okay, well, he's right." You know, I mean, this guy's probably 60, 70 years old. Of course, he spilled more beer on his tie than I could ever drink. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Maybe I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, if I could have,
What an asshole.
yeah, if I could have learned when I was 13 where my life would have went if I stayed on that path,
Yeah.
I, who knows? Maybe I wouldn't have changed. Maybe I would have. Um, but it would be nice to not have to have gone through all the things that I did
Yeah.
up to this point in my life.
Well, that actually segues nicely to the just for today. But I don't want to cut you off in the middle of your story. But
Yeah.
I love the just for today, and I love the comment that you made when you read it, and then we didn't get to go deeper into the comment because we were getting ready to come on the show.
So
Faith.
that's one of my favorite pieces of Narcotics Anonymous literature is the Just for Today book
Hmm.
because I'll read it
Me too.
and it usually always hits right on point with whatever I'm going through in my life at that time. Like today, the faith piece. I have to have faith that yes, I'm in a little bit of financial turmoil right now.
Yeah.
My last week at my job that I quit wasn't great. Didn't make a ton of money. Bills are due. Um, you know, and now I'm without a job. So, there's some stormy winds brewing in my life, but I got to have faith that my higher power is going to get me through these situations, you know? So, the other day, the Just for Today was on. I think it was doing something nice for my sponsor or something like that.
Really?
It was something to do with
Well, I
sponsorship
did
being a
not read that one. Okay.
it was something to do with
Sorry,
sponsorship.
Alexa.
Yeah. So it was something to do with sponsorship being a two-way street.
Uh-huh. Oh, okay, okay.
And I was like, I waited until about 10:30 p.m. to read it.
Of course.
And I was like, oh man. Like every morning, part of my daily routine, and I've been slacking on it lately.
Mm.
But I'll go ahead and break it down for you. So I wake up, and before I pick up the phone and get on social media and I'm looking all over Facebook, because I've noticed that can set me off into a negative path
Mm.
throughout the day. Um, so I try to before I get on Facebook and social media and everything. And this isn't something that I came up with. This is something that I have adopted from another person in the program who has substantially more time than I do. And this is something that they do in their daily routine. But yeah, I wake up, try not to get on social media, pray, sit there for a few minutes and meditate, try and hear whatever my higher power's answer is to my prayers. Um, then I read the Just for Today. And then after I do that, I copy the bottom line where it says just for today and whatever like the main takeaway from the reading for that day is. I copy that and I post it on Facebook. And a lot of people have told me, I love seeing that you do that. It reminds
Mm.
me to read it sometimes. Like, so
That's the only time I read it.
when you see that I
Seriously. Yep,
post it.
I'm serious. No,
Okay.
my just for today book is probably over at Sunnybrook still. So I mean,
Yeah,
I want them to have it. I should go get, I can afford to buy a new one. I can just look it up.
exactly.
But
So
you
I get it.
always, yeah,
Great resource. You can get an email list. Like you can get on a mailing list.
yeah,
And so every night at midnight, it gets sent to me. So
yeah.
I wake up and it's one of the first notifications on my phone is that and I just boom, open it up, read it in my email. Um,
Nice.
and then my sponsor has me every day. I wake up and send him a daily affirmation.
Mm.
And so the way that goes is I'm an addict named Justin. My clean date is 11/1/21.
Hmm.
My sponsor is Jamie A. My home group is YPNA. Upon awakening, I made a deep and personal commitment to stay clean just for today.
Nice.
And so send that back and forth to each other every day. But back to the just for today, I woke up the other day. It was like, didn't do my morning routine that I just laid out for you. And about 10:30, I realized like, man, I haven't read the just for today.
10:30 at night.
10:30
Yeah.
p.m. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I read it. And of course, it's about sponsorship being a two-way street. And I'm like, I didn't even send my affirmation text to my sponsor today.
Ooh.
So now I'm like, oh man, like
Ooh.
says, just for today, I'll do something nice for my sponsor. And so I texted him. I said, hey man, I know I didn't text you earlier this morning and I've kind of slacked a little bit today. I just read the Just for Today and saw what it was about. I just want you to know how much I appreciate you and the fact that you've always been here every time I've decided to come back to the program. And, you have a lot of wisdom and recovery knowledge. And I really appreciate all the help that you give me. And just know, like it says, sponsorship is a two-way street. So if you ever need any help or advice or just someone to talk to, you know I'm here for you. And his response was good. He told me he appreciates me and he has a lot of love for me, and he'll definitely, if that's what this program is about, is one addict helping another. So
Did he give you shit for
not at all.
not? No, isn't that
Nah,
crazy?
he's not like the type of sponsor that gives me shit.
No,
Yeah,
no. I know your sponsor, and I
yeah.
love your sponsor.
He's one of those
Uh,
ones that's like, okay, like I'm gonna let you bump your head if you want to,
yeah, yeah.
and then when you're ready to get to work, like let me know.
My sponsor's like that too. I
Yeah.
love that.
I
I
love
love
it, but
that.
then sometimes it's kind of like, all right, I wish you were a little bit harder on me because I need that structure.
Well, yeah, but
One of the reasons why I thrive when I'm in jail is because there's structure.
yeah.
Somebody tells me when I have to get up and when to make my bed and when I get to eat and when I can take a shower and all that kind of stuff. Like it's just because I'm a giant child.
Yeah.
Like I'm a grown up child. I need somebody to tell me what to do.
I've heard your sponsor's story. You don't think he can relate?
I'm sure he can.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Not to talk about other people, but I've
Yeah.
heard your sponsor's story. I'm sure he can relate.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean that's what I need. A lot of
Yeah.
times until I get a little bit, hopefully as I get further along in this process, then hopefully I won't need somebody to kind of manage my life and tell me what I'm supposed to do at all points in time. Like my girlfriend has to tell me like um make sure you call this agency and do what you need to do.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's okay. I want to talk about when I got here because I've known you probably since. Were you weren't a participant when I got here, were you?
when'd you get here?
February 2018.
No.
No, April 2018.
No.
Okay. Yeah.
Man, it's been 2018.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm coming up.
So, I got here in February. No, not February. November of 2016 is when
Okay.
I was released from jail. And
I had just gotten arrested for the first time.
ooh,
Yeah,
man, you made it a long time.
I did.
Yeah.
40 years old before I got arrested. at
I couldn't
illegal case.
imagine. The first time I got like arrested, so I got pulled over for a DUI,
Mm.
although they didn't have proof because I didn't take the breathalyzer. But it was like, man, it was like the day before my 19th birthday,
Oof.
and so I had to sit in jail for a few hours while they did the paperwork. And like, if I was drunk, which I wasn't, I had like a light beer a couple hours before I drove. But the cop scared me into not taking the breathalyzer because
But
he's like,
you're also 19 years old.
19, right?
Yeah.
So it's illegal anyway, and that's why the cop was able to arrest me for a DUI per se,
Okay.
because he told me like I did 4 field sobriety tests.
Mhm.
Like he kept giving me different tests, and I was like, all right, dude, obviously I'm not drunk. You wouldn't keep giving me tests if I was. And so he's like, are you ready to take the breathalyzer? And I was like, yeah, bring it on. He's like, well, I have to let you know because you're under 21. If you blow above a .00, you're gonna automatically lose your license for a year.
Mm.
I said, all right, I'm not taking the test. He said, all right, go ahead and put your hands behind your back. I said, damn, he got me.
Well,
And so when I
yeah.
went to court, it got dropped down to a reckless driving.
Yeah.
And I had to have a breathalyzer in my car and all that kind of stuff. And me being an addict, you know, I didn't stop drinking.
Yeah.
I had my childhood friend that I told you about. This was before I moved to Virginia. My childhood friend who I ended up moving to Virginia with, um, he would hang out with me because he wasn't a drinker, and I would drink and drive, and then I'd like pass him the breathalyzer because while you're
This is
driving,
before the cameras were on it.
before the
Yeah, I
cameras,
was-
yeah. Now they have cameras,
cameras.
and I'm probably the reason why they figured out like, oh, he's just got a passenger that doesn't drink blowing it in there for him.
Right. You're the only one who ever did that.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm special, unique, and different.
Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
another symptom of my disease.
Another symptom.
But yeah, so I would just pass it to him, and he'd blow, and it down the road we go.
Mm.
But I failed out 4 months into 6 months of having it. They were like, you have to have it court ordered for 6 months. 4 months in, I failed out because one night I had a couple beers, waited a few hours, and I'm like, all right, I'm good.
Oh, yeah.
Go out there and try and blow in it. Bad idea.
Oh.
Yep. So I ended up losing my license for the year anyway. Yeah. So a year and 4 months of all that stuff going on.
Knock knock. Who's there? The
Yeah.
consequences of my actions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was, of course, just the insanity that we partake in.
So, but you went, all right. So you ended up staying here.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Well, where is Pasadena,
Yeah. Pasadena, Maryland.
Maryland? Where is that in Maryland?
It's like right central Maryland.
Okay.
20 minutes from Annapolis, which is the state capital. I'm sure. Do you know where that is?
I do. I
Right in the
mean,
middle of Maryland. It's like right
yeah,
along the
yeah.
Chesapeake Bay.
Okay, so close to. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I love the Chesapeake Bay
Yeah.
and all the I love
All the crustaceans
sailing
that
and
come out of it.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
look at that. Look
Maryland
at that.
crab.
Maryland crab on you there.
That's right.
All right.
Maryland's not a state. It's a cult.
It's a cult.
Yeah.
Well, they were. Well, I'm not going to say that on here.
Our flag is the greatest flag in the nation.
I think it's a freaking badass flag.
We're addicted to Old Bay.
Yes.
Old Bay goes on everything.
Old Bay does go, and it goes well on everything.
Yep.
I'm with you on that.
And if you're from like the Baltimore area, look, this is funny. You notice this tattoo right here?
Yes.
That's actually the mascot for a beer company that was brewed up in Baltimore for 100 years. National Bohemian. That was my go-to beer. And when I lived in Maryland, I got the tattoo because it's a Maryland thing to do because we're not a state, we're a cult.
You're a cult.
So
Okay.
probably 40% of people from Maryland have the same tattoo.
I-
That's just
yeah.
a oddball figure, but
Hey, look, it's one of those facts too good to check.
Yeah.
Yeah.
exactly.
I lived in Maryland.
I said it with such confidence that you believe it to be the truth.
Well, I'm gonna let you think that I believe that. I lived in Maryland when I was a kid.
Okay.
My dad was stationed at Fort Pax, and we were there for 3 years, I think, and
Yeah.
came back, and I lived in Maryland again when I was probably about 10 years ago now. But I only lived in oh gosh, what's it called? Right where University of Maryland College Park is, Greenway.
College Park, Maryland.
Greenbelt. That's
Greenbelt.
it. Right next to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lived in Greenbelt for a few months. And,
College Park is a bad area.
well, I almost
Like
had
the actual
yeah,
college
no, it is a
park,
terrible
yeah.
area. But I almost had a job at University of Maryland. This was before my first arrest.
Okay.
Almost.
Yeah.
Almost. I didn't end up getting that job, and then I went deeper into my addiction.
Of course.
I just got.
Woe is me. I didn't get hired.
Woe
let
is me.
Let me destroy my life some.
I had just come back from Florida, where I had found new and exciting ways to destroy myself.
Yeah.
Which I had gotten to Florida after finding new and exciting ways to destroy myself in West Virginia, running our family restaurant into the ground.
Yeah.
Which was after years and years of finding ways to destroy myself in DC. So naturally,
Makes sense.
change of scenery there. But I didn't have a problem at
No.
that point.
No.
No. It was your problem for not hiring me.
Right.
It was your problem for not supporting me. It was your problem for not co-signing the loan on my car that I wanted. It was your problem for not having the money available for me to go to college. It was your problem. It was never mine.
No.
And it
never.
really took, somebody who'd been in my shoes to look at me and say, who really is the problem? And how do
Yeah.
you want to deal with this?
For me, it's like, what's the common denominator in
What's
all
the
of
common
this?
denominator?
Me.
Yeah.
Like all my failed relationships, all the jobs that I've destroyed,
Whoa.
everything that I've ever messed up in my life, and I've tried to blame on other people. Somebody had to sit me down and say, "Look, dummy, what's the only thing that's been in common in all those situations?
Yeah.
It's you."
I think after I met you, because we met in the rooms and whatnot, and I saw you and I heard you speak, and you were one of these people. You talk good.
Oh yeah.
You talk good. You got nice vocabulary. We talked about vocabulary a few minutes
Yeah.
ago. You're up. In all seriousness, you're obviously an intelligent person. Which I'm attracted to. I think.
On paper, you wouldn't be able to tell.
Well, I can relate.
Yeah.
I can relate. I know I have intelligence.
Right.
And if you look at, on paper now, it's looking better.
So for me,
But-
it was growing up. I had an above average IQ.
Yeah.
I was diagnosed with ADHD in 5th grade. Or no, 1st grade.
Wow.
So I'm a 5-year-old. And
Did they give you stuff?
Yeah. I was
Wow.
prescribed, it started out 10 milligrams a day. Instant release Adderall.
Wow.
Because we're talking the mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
There's no research to show that, Adderall is pharmaceutical meth. Let's give it to kids.
Wow.
And so from 1st grade to 5th grade, I was on Adderall. And I stopped taking it on my own without any doctors. Like, I didn't tell my doctor, it makes me feel weird. I don't want to take it anymore. Like, I just stopped taking it because I was like, screw this. Like, this stuff makes me like a zombie.
Yeah.
I'm used to being. And so middle school was treacherous. I went from a straight A student in elementary school to D's and E's all through middle school. Don't
had-
know how I made it to high school.
You had E's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was because I would finish all my work and then I was bored, so I was the class clown. Like I
Ah,
knew all the answers.
yeah.
I'd finish my work real quick, put it off to the side, and then I'd distract everybody else and cause a scene and make a fool of myself, get sent to the principal's office, get suspended, get detention, whatever. And then, you know, ninth grade is around the time that I moved up to Baltimore from Pasadena and got involved with a whole different group of friends. Um,
Mm.
started skipping class. I failed ninth grade. No, 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 no. I didn't move to Baltimore until I should have been in 10th grade,
Okay.
but I was in ninth grade again.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because I was a class clown, got detention, suspended, failed out. So I failed ninth grade, passed ninth grade, failed 10th grade, and my second time in 10th grade, I was like, all right, school's not for me, and dropped out.
Mm.
So yeah, on paper, high school dropout. Didn't get my GED until 2015 when I was in
Oh, you?
Pamunkey.
I didn't. Okay.
I got my GED.
Yeah, I didn't realize you dropped out of high school.
Yeah, so I dropped out of high school.
Good for you.
Went to work.
I mean, good for you for getting the GED,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
dropping
yeah.
out.
Went to work at 14 years old.
Yeah.
And then my dad passed away when I was 16.
Yeah.
Or no, I didn't go to work at 14. I did actually. I had a summer job. But yeah, my dad passed away at 16, and that's like right after my dad passed away is when I dropped out of school and
Wow.
just started working. And then, excuse me, shortly after, I just started using.
And how did that? Are you an only child? No.
No, I've got 3 brothers.
Older, younger? Where are you in the
I've got
mix?
1 older and 2 younger brothers.
Okay. You're
So I'm
second.
like middle.
Yeah.
Second born.
Second born.
Yeah, the
I'm
prodigy.
I'm I'm the oldest of 3, and
Okay.
I like to remind my brother and my sister that I was an only child and I can be again.
I was once an only child. You
I
keep pissing me off, I will be again.
my brother's also in recovery, and my sister, we're fairly close. My sister and I are very close. She lives right here in Glen Allen. Um, how are you with your family now?
So my older brother is, I would say, estranged.
Okay.
He has very mild case of cerebral palsy. He also had some physical disabilities from the moment he was born. He had bilateral hip dysplasia and clubfoot. So he came out, his legs were messed up. He had to have 13 surgeries before he was 13,
Yeah.
to correct his hips and his legs and everything. My parents were told when he was first born, well, my dad and his mother, because we have different moms. Me and my brother that's like next youngest to me are the only ones that have the same mom and dad. My older brother has a different mom and my youngest brother has a different mom, but we all have the same dad. Um, and so my oldest brother, he had a lot of problems growing up with physical disabilities, um, you know, slight mental disabilities. And I want to say he was maybe 22, 23. He's 6 years older than me. Um, he ended up moving down to North Carolina with his mother. And ever since he moved down there, he's like just completely different life. Like he hardly ever reaches out to any of us. Like not a whole lot of communication there. I've talked to him briefly a few times since, but it's not like me and him were like running partners when we
Mm.
were younger before he moved down there. We would get into trouble in the neighborhood, steal stuff. I remember one time he he found out, look, I was like 13, 14 years old. Like this story will let you know that I've been an addict since before I ever even used. So we found out that one of the neighbors, there was like this little creek that separated like one part of our neighborhood and the other one. And these people on the other side of the creek had a large piece of property and this like patio, like porch, like party area. And so we jumped the creek one day and we go and we like sneak up into this patio area and there's a refrigerator out there. And so we open it and there's liquor and beer and stuff in there. So we're like, yes. We grab this liquor and beer and we start walking away from the patio. And the guy comes out and he's like, ah, what the hell are you doing? And he starts screaming and yelling and chasing us, right? And we take off running. And my brother, he had those physical disabilities. And so he's way slower than I am. I get to the edge of the creek and I turn around and look, and he's about to get caught by this dude. And so he's like, go, go. And he throws the box that we had full of beer like towards me. It hits the ground right in front of me, and like it was glass bottles. Most of them busted. There was a few cans in there, but I grabbed the box up and I jump over the creek, and he somehow gets away from dude and jumps the creek too. And we're like in his bedroom in the basement of my dad's house, like completely out of breath. Like I'm 14, he's like 20 at this point, and so it's like obviously I got an issue here. If I thought that was normal behavior, I mean, boys,
What is
teenagers,
normal?
boys, teenagers, you know, I'm
Yeah.
sure I'm not the only one that's ever done that at 14 years old, but still, it's like
Yeah.
the warning signs were there.
Yeah.
So my younger brother, the one that him and I have the same mom, I see a lot of myself in him.
Yeah.
He's going down pretty much the exact same path that I went down. When I was his age, he's 3 years younger than me.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, I see him going down the same exact path. Using, drinking. He's been staying in a motel for the last almost 2 years with this girl that he's dating. She finally, I guess, had enough of them having to struggle to get the money together to renew their motel room every night that she went back home with her parents, took her 2 kids and went back home with her parents. So now my younger brother's on the streets up in Maryland, not working. He's just going down the same exact path that I am. He's homeless. He's using. Don't know if he has a car. It's been a while since I talked to him because he only like reaches out to me when he wants money.
Yeah.
And I'm at the point where I know what he wants the money for, and I don't want to enable him because people did it for me.
Yeah.
People enabled me, and it allowed my addiction to get progressively worse. He's got to find his own bottom, unfortunately.
Well, when I got here, going back to that, and I knew you in the rooms, you know, the intelligence obviously came through, but what was appealing to me was that you looked like you had it together. Like you had, well, and that's where I'm getting at,
Yeah,
because you had the car, you seemed to have a job you loved, you were cocky as F, and you would read the readings
without
without
looking at him.
looking at them. And it's funny because somebody told me before I noticed that about you, somebody told me before that he's going to relapse.
Yeah.
Somebody else, not you,
yeah,
but he's going to relapse because he does that, talking about somebody else in some other meeting. And sure enough, whoever that was did end up relapsing. But I
So I
always
know
thought
of
that about you.
I know of one other person that can read every reading in a Narcotics Anonymous meeting, the readings that we read before,
Yeah.
without looking at them. He's got them memorized front to back. I'm not going to say this person's name because it's an anonymous
Right,
program.
right.
But as far as I know, he's been around for 14 years, hasn't
Yeah.
relapsed. So,
Well,
you
yeah.
know. But yeah, when I was in the jail program in Pamunkey, a lot of people called me Captain Recovery.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I got the nickname Stingray
Stingray.
because we had a pull-up system in the program where if somebody did something wrong, broke a rule, you would write it down in this book, and you could write it down anonymously what you were pulling them up for, and it would get read in the community meeting each night at 6 p.m. And so I would write people up for infractions or whatever,
Hmm.
and they would get very upset because they'd realize it was me because I was like one of the only people that saw them doing this. And so they gave me the nickname Stingray
Stingray.
because my last name's Ray.
Right, right.
And so they were like, well, you got to watch out. Stingray's going to sting you.
Ooh,
so-
Captain Recovery over there.
Yeah. And now I've kind of embraced the nickname. I actually have a Stingray tattooed on my chest,
Oh, that's kinda
amongst
funny.
a bunch of other things. But yeah, where were we?
Well, we were talking about dressing up the trash can is essentially what we were talking about.
The dressed up garbage can. I mean, you could probably say the same about me today. I just explained to you that I've been slacking on my morning routine and my recovery.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've done perfectly for the last 71 days is I haven't used. Which is most important.
Yeah.
As long as I don't use and I make it to bed tonight without using, I have a fighting chance tomorrow, right? But if I use, all bets are off. Like I'm back to screwing my life up.
Well, so Justin, what I want to get at though is that early on in my early recovery, seeing that was hopeful. Gave me hope, right?
Yeah.
It did, and seeing you now, and humanizing the experience and recognizing that the thoughts that I have in my brain, the things that I do, when I see you humanized, when I see you going through what you've gone through and continue to go forward, that actually gives me hope too.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. Like when I saw you the other day, I grabbed you and gave you a hug because I was like, man, I love that we don't see each other in meetings because we're kind of
Two
different,
different
but
fellowships. But
right. And I'm also not the biggest meeting maker, but that's between me and my sponsor, I
hey,
guess.
look, I
Not
skipped
my.
one Sunday.
Did you?
I did.
Yeah.
Spent all day with my daughter, and then me and my daughter's mother were like, "All right, let's go to the movies." So I skipped a meeting on Sunday. But back to what you were saying, yeah, I feel like I'm a lot more humbled this time.
Okay.
Um, I didn't lose the material things that I'd put together through um, previous periods in recovery. What I lost was a big chunk of my mental health, um, personal relationships with people, spiritual conditioning. Like I felt just lost, empty, broken. Um, it was all I wouldn't like intangible things that I lost. Portions of my sanity.
Yeah.
Those are more valuable to me than any of the material things. Like I still have my car. I don't know how, but I still have a place to live. I still had my job mainly because it was the type of position where they were like, all right, well, I mean, if you don't produce, you don't get paid. It's not hurting us.
Right.
Do your own thing, whatever. Work when you want. Um, if it had been any other kind of job, I probably would have gotten fired.
Mm.
Um, but for me, it's the intangible things. Like the way that I feel is the most important. And I lost all those things in this last relapse. And so coming back, it's like I said, it's a humbling experience.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was definitely a dressed up garbage can back in 2018. Um, and that was God. If you think like you said, what was it, April or February of 2018?
I got my I got here April. I got here the last day of April 2018. So May 1st,
Okay,
really. Yeah.
so you saw me like coming back from my relapse that almost killed me.
Yeah.
Like I said, when I got here in November of 2016, I had about 18 months clean.
Okay.
But most of that was jail time. I just did 18 months.
Right.
Actually, all of that was jail time. Um, and so I stayed clean for almost 6 months after I got out of jail. And that was when I was like Captain Recovery. Um,
I,
I
I
actually,
I
I,
had 2 months when I got here, and boy, I knew everything.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I actually used 2 days before my 2 year celebration. And my home group was one of the biggest meetings in Richmond at the time. Now it's one of the smallest, which is crazy how things change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I had this really profound speaker, somebody that was really like a huge pillar in the recovery community in Richmond. And after he spoke and said all this profound, amazing stuff, and touched a lot of people and got oohs and ahs and some laughs and stuff like that, then John Shinholzer gets up and says that he's so proud of me and he's never seen anybody with a fire for recovery like me. And if anybody's going to make it long term recovery, it's me, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm just sitting there in my chair, knowing that I just used 2 days before.
Ooh.
And all these people are saying all these great things about me. That's not conducive to sticking around, right?
Yeah.
And so within a couple weeks after that, I was gone. Didn't come to meetings anymore, wasn't
Yeah.
calling my sponsor, like just full blown off to the races. And in December of 2017, I overdosed for the first time and almost died. I was home by myself, overdosed, and I woke up 3 hours after. I remember using face down in the spare bedroom of the apartment that I was living in, coughing up blood. And I freaked
Wow.
out and I called 911. And luckily, I didn't die. But that was a huge wake up
You
call.
called 911 on yourself
Hmm.
after an overdose.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so luckily, like I was freaked out. I was like, man, I'm going to go back to jail because I'm still
Yeah.
on probation at this time.
Right. Yeah. That's.
I'm like, man, I'm gonna go. The police come into the apartment. They find my paraphernalia. They didn't find any drugs because I'd done them all. They kept asking me, "Where's the drugs? Where's the drugs?" I'm like, I mean, they're in me. I did
In
them
my
all.
body.
I did them all. They're gone.
Distill my urine. You'll get it.
Yeah, but they found my paraphernalia, and I was like, great. They're gonna send it to a lab and test it, and it's gonna come back positive, and I'm gonna get a possession charge for it because I've gotten one before for dirty paraphernalia.
Yeah.
And so I called my probation officer the next day and explained to her what happened. And she was like, "Well, I can't violate you yet because you don't have any charges. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put you back on color code. I'm going to make you do an IOP program." And so, I kind of was forced to get clean. I mean, I wasn't forced. I could always go back to jail. I could
Sure.
keep using until I ended up back in jail, but I just did.
Or
Yeah, or
yeah,
dead.
yeah.
But I just got out 6 months ago, and I didn't want to go back and do another because I had 18 years of a suspended sentence over my head that I was on probation for.
Wow.
And so I was like, man, if I go back to jail, they're gonna smoke me this time. I'm gonna be in there for like at least 5 years. So I really rededicated myself, and then that's when you came around and you were like, all right, look at this guy. He's doing the thing. I was a dressed up garbage can.
Some of that stuff stuck.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
mean, so one of the greatest things about recovery for me is that of all the times, like I'm what you would consider a chronic relapser. I've come in and out so many times I can't even count them. But the one thing that's great is that all of the knowledge that I gained through every single one of those periods in recovery, luckily I didn't lose in my relapses because I come back and I have this experience and this exposure to the program and recovery knowledge, and I'm able to access that. And so that's what's great. Like I feel like I've got 71 days clean this time. But I feel like I've been around, like there's people who come up to me and they're like, "I'm so glad you're back. You're such a big person in recovery to me." And I'm like, "Man, I got like 71 days." People
Mm.
hear me share it. Like I had one guy come up to me and ask me to speak at a meeting, and he's like, "How long you got clean?" I was like, "This time, like," and this was a few weeks ago. I was like 52 days because he had just heard me share in the meeting before.
Mm.
I was like 52 days. He's like, "Oh man." I was like, "Why?" He's like, "I need a speaker," and I was like, "Yeah, sorry, I can't help you." He's like, "Yeah, home group wants him to have like at least a year clean." I was like, "Yeah, holler at me in like 11 months,
God
10 and a
willing,
half months. Yeah, God
Lord,
willing."
Lord willing, and the creek don't rise,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So, but it's just because, like I said, you don't forget what you learned when you were in recovery before.
Yeah.
At least in my experience, I don't forget what I've learned.
Well, and so we've got about 5 more minutes left, Justin.
Really?
And I know, right? It goes by,
God,
doesn't
that
it?
was quick.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Time flies when you're having fun. What makes it different this time?
So I know that a lot of people like I believe this myself is that you have to want recovery for yourself. Um, you have to be the most important. You almost have to be selfish at some points in recovery. You have to want it for yourself. But for me, um, yes, I want it for myself. But I also have a 17-month-old daughter, and I want her story to be the same as mine, where I never saw my mom or dad. Well, my mom occasionally drinks now. But I never saw my dad use drugs or alcohol except for near the end of his life when he was prescribed medications and he took them the way they were prescribed. I never saw him purposely use alcohol or drugs with the intent to alter the way he felt. And I want my daughter's story to be the same, that she never has to see her dad use or drink or anything. Um, because she's just such a great blessing to me, and I want to be there for her for as long as I can. And so that's a big driving factor for me. Granted, it wasn't enough motivation up until 71 days ago. Um, but I don't know what it is. Something just changed in my head. It's like a switch was flipped, and I was like, okay, I can't keep living this way. I want to, like, I've always enjoyed life when I was in recovery. Like you said, I amass uh, material possessions, and I look good, and I start getting healthy again, and I have sanity. That's the most important piece. Is like I can go through the day and be able to deal with my feelings and have this peace and serenity and calm about me.
Mhm.
And when I start using, all that goes out the window. So for me, this time, like I want to get back to the way I felt that first day I got out of jail, and I had all that clean time, and I was just happy and joyous and free, like everything. I had the whole world in front of me. Like that's what's keeping me around this time.
Did you send off your intention to your sponsor today?
I did actually right before we started
Did you?
this. Yeah,
All
and he
right.
may have. Now he hasn't texted me back.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
but he's a busy dude, so
Yeah, yeah, he's
he'll text
definitely
me
busy.
back, or I'll see him at a. Actually, I might not see him at a meeting tonight because I'm gonna try a different group.
Oh yeah, yeah. You may or may not see me at a meeting tonight, but we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'm gonna blame it on my headlamp being out. So
Oh, okay.
because
Well, you know
that's
they can't pull you over for that anymore.
it's not a matter of getting pulled over. It's actually a matter of not being able to see. I'm, I'm not even worried about that. I'm just like worried about hitting little old
For
ladies.
me, like, dude, for me, I'm just turned 30, and I'm like, is it just me, or are people's headlights getting brighter, or are my eyes getting worse?
Yeah, no, probably both.
Yeah, it's a combination of both.
Yeah, a little from column A, from a little from column B.
Yeah.
But
So
my mom, her headlamp was out when I just saw her 2 weeks last weekend, and I actually 2 weeks before she at Christmas and at New Year's for both. And I said when I saw her when she was coming down here for New Year's, I said, "Did you get your headlamp fixed?" No, no. I hope I don't get pulled over. And I was thinking they can't pull you over for that anymore.
right.
You know,
Yeah.
I didn't tell her that though. I want her to get it taken care of because
Yeah.
she's blind as a bat and she
Well,
lives on a really dark road.
so here's a little bit more of the unmanageability and justification that goes on in the life of an addict like myself. I have a broken windshield on my car.
Oh, I just broke mine.
My inspection sticker expired in June.
Oh my goodness.
My taillights on my car are tinted.
Wait, what?
Yeah, like I tinted them so that they're like dark. They're completely blacked out.
You can tint your taillights?
Yeah, they spray like it's like this little spray lens tint
But why would you do that?
because it looks cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so my taillights are
Sorry, I
tinted.
forgot. Yeah, dressed up
And
trash can.
the vehicle's not even registered in my name or insured. Whoopsies. And I am driving around and I'm like, well, they can't pull me over for any of these things that I've just listed. So as long as I'm not actually breaking the law while I'm driving, I'm good. Right. And that's justification and rationalization. And that's like the sick addict mentality going on that I'm like, oh, I'm good, dude. Just
Yeah.
don't speed and don't do improper lane changes and don't cut people off and like they can't even pull you over.
See, I like to speed.
Me too.
I do too.
I tell myself, I'm like, don't speed. And then I get on 64 and I'm like, "Choom."
That is one of the
Cussing
harder
people
ones.
out for being in the left lane. Like,
Yes, I did it on my way to work this morning.
that's a huge manifestation of like so one of the things that I really want to work on this time in recovery as well is like my anger.
Mm,
Because that's part of the reason why I'm like back in recovery because I've made some mistakes that were caused by me using and getting angry.
yeah.
And so I've again had more experience with the criminal justice system because of that. And so for me, like one of the big things that I want to work on and take away from recovery is like just being able to not get angry over somebody being in the left lane doing 55 and a 65, you know?
Or even doing 65 and a 65.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, this is
Yeah.
the lane where we got places to be and you're holding it up.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. You know, Justin, I appreciate you coming on here today, and I know that you have those specific challenges going forward, and we can talk maybe another time more about that if you want to. But I just want to tell you how grateful that I am that you came and shared part of your story here. There were some comments up there. I think they were I think it was Chelsea. Yeah, Chelsea. Yeah, Cambria. Cambria, good to see you. She says, "Go, Justin."
yeah.
Um,
Thank you, Cambria.
and Chelsea Rushbrook.
Yeah.
It's hard to cut people off. She put that up there a while ago. I'm not sure where we were in the conversation.
I don't
but
remember what we were talking about either,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's in life it's hard to cut people off. On 64, not so
Not
much.
so much.
Not so much.
Yeah, no, that she put that up. You can see she put that up like 15 minutes
Yeah,
ago.
yeah,
but-
243. Yeah. No, on 64, I do it all the time.
Well, I learned, and I'm not going to take a 10-minute stupid boring story, but I don't speed
Yeah.
anymore.
Okay. Did you get
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Hello, Nathan. Here are the consequences of your actions.
I got to do driving school because I got pulled over doing a 41 and a 25 a couple months ago. Yeah. And so I went to court and they were like, he's got a clean driving record, no points. As far as support and monetary. Oh, I know we were talking about my brother.
Chelsea.
Yeah, my younger brother. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, he's hit my mom up. Like the only time he reaches out to my mom too is he's asking for money. And her and I have both had to just like, no, dude, don't call me if this is what you're calling about. Like, figure it out. I'm half tempted to reach out to him and maybe talk to some of the staff here and see if we can get him a scholarship. And if he's willing,
Absolutely. Yeah.
dude, come down here.
But
Start over.
It's the willingness.
You take and you take
Ah,
you with you everywhere you go. If we could get him a scholarship, he might stay in one of the houses for a week or two, and then he's
yeah.
off. You know,
Could be a good introduction though.
it could.
Um, have that conversation with Joyce downstairs.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
have that conversation with your brother. You know, and it may not be the first time, may not be the second time, may not even be the third time, but you know, like
Eventually, he'll be ready.
because
He'll either die. He's already
yeah,
been to jail,
yeah,
or he's gonna die,
yeah,
or he's gonna get willing.
yeah.
That's what had to happen to me.
That progression of our disease is coupled with our memory of what recovery can be.
Yeah.
You know, and you went on with that. You talked about that, and I
Oh,
think
like
these,
after I've
yeah,
had an introduction to recovery and experience with how good life can be in recovery, when I make the choice to go back out and start using again, I don't get drunk or high. I just get miserable
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's in the back of my head. I have all this recovery knowledge and I'm trying to use, and I'm like,
yeah.
this feels horrible. Why am I doing this? And most of the time I'm using against my will. I don't even want to anymore. I have to.
Yeah.
So,
I'm really grateful, very selfishly, for people who come on and they talk about their relapse stories very openly and honestly.
yeah.
As a person who never had a problem until I discovered I had a problem.
Yeah. Well, my
Um,
problem was when everything was gone.
well,
That's when it became a problem.
that would probably be when I did too. I haven't found the need yet to go back and see if I've overcome the problem enough to add more
You
stuff to
haven't.
it. No, I haven't yet.
You can use my research as
Well,
I've done
that's
enough research for you, Nathan.
yeah,
And for everybody out there, like, you don't have to go out and do any more research. I've done enough for you. It still sucks out there. So if this is your first time in recovery and you're watching this, you don't have to go test the waters. Like, it's still freezing and full of sharks out there. If we're talking about testing the waters.
that's the gratitude piece for me,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you coming on the show. And
Thanks for having me.
yeah,
It was a lot of fun.
you still remain one of my favorite people around here. I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good for my ego.
Well, I mean, that and $5 will get you maybe a small cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Let's go.
So, oh well, Virginia barbecue.
Yeah,
All
let's do it.
right, we got that. So, hey, our guest today. See, after we get to the hour, I can't talk anymore.
Right.
Our guest today with Justin Ray. Thank you for coming and sharing your experience, strength, and hope.
Yeah.
Thank you as always to other Justin over there. Who's
Yeah,
been
Justin.
quiet, sitting in there, being the producer of the show. We will see you all on Thursday. We don't know who the guest will be yet, but I think I have an idea. It's going to be pretty interesting. We'll see you then. Take care.